Ready to discover 10 rare classic tractors worth more than your house? Let's jump in before prices soar. Truly unbelievable. Number 10, 1918, Waterloo Boy. Let's begin with a piece of agricultural history that predates John Deere's trademark green and yellow wave. The 1918 Waterloo Boy N. If the name sounds familiar, that's because the Waterloo Boy was effectively John Deere's stepping stone into the tractor market. Not only is this machine unbelievably rare, but some mint condition examples have sold for well into six figures. And when you realize it's over a century old, you can't help but think, where on earth would I find parts for that? That's the trick, though. Parts for the Waterloo Boy are scarce, to say the least. Some owners have been known to scour old barns, rummage through antique auctions, or even fly across country lines just to snag an elusive gearbox or a piece of original sheet metal. This scarcity is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it drives the prices up. On the other hand, it means you'll spend a fortune in both time and money if you're determined to restore one to running condition. What makes the Waterloo Boy N so fascinating is how it changed the very idea of farming. Featuring a two-cylinder engine that might sound a bit like a tuba on caffeine, it put out enough torque to handle plowing duties that were once reserved for teams of horses. Imagine a farmer in 1918 who'd only known horse-drawn implements. Along comes this mechanical marvel that could run all day on kerosene, and farming productivity soared overnight. Though comparatively simplistic by modern standards, the Waterloo Boy had a radiator design that was unusually large for its time, providing better cooling under heavy loads. That said, it also leaked more often than a rickety old boat, meaning farmers had to constantly fuss with it. But hey, if you wanted the power, you had to accept the quirks. Now let's talk controversy. Purists argue that the Waterloo Boy is the true start of John Deere's tractor dynasty. Others claim that John Deere's purchase of the Waterloo Gasoline Engine Company overshadowed earlier tractor innovations. Whatever your stance, the brand synergy was unstoppable, ultimately kicking off the famous John Deere line. Collectors today see the Waterloo Boy as the holy grail. The more original the components, the fatter your wallet needs to be. And yes, some pristine units could easily cost more than that three-bedroom house in your neighborhood, assuming you can even find one for sale. Number 9, Minneapolis Moline UDLX Comfort Ractor. Next up is a flamboyant showstopper from the 1930s, the Minneapolis Moline UDLX Comfort Tractor. The name itself suggests something fancy, and believe me, this wasn't your grandpa's rusty field rig. Nicknamed the Comfort Ractor, it was designed for farmers who wanted a little bit of style, luxury, and road travel convenience. If the Great Gatsby had traded his fancy cars for farmland, he'd probably be rolling in a UDLX. What's so special? For starters, this tractor had a cab that more closely resembled the interior of a classic automobile than any farming machine you'd imagine. Plush seating, an actual heater, and even a speedometer that reached up to 40 miles per hour. Unheard of in the farming community back in the 1930s. The concept was that you could plow your fields in the morning, then drive into town in the afternoon without needing a separate vehicle. This dual-purpose idea was innovative, but it was also a bit ahead of its time. Many farmers balked at the high cost, wondering why in the world they'd need to drive a tractor into town in the first place. As a result, the UDLX Comfort Tractor didn't exactly break sales records. Very few were ever produced, which is exactly why they are so rare and so expensive today. Restored models have fetched staggering prices at auction. We're talking anywhere from $150,000 to over $200,000, depending on condition and originality. Factor in the cost of interior restoration, because where do you find original 1930s tractor cabin upholstery? And you're looking at a serious investment, but it's not all roses. For all its luxury, the Comfort Ractor is notoriously finicky when it comes to maintenance. Early gearboxes had a tendency to slip, and the suspension system wasn't exactly designed for lengthy road trips, no matter how the marketing materials boasted about it. Also, the design was somewhat polarizing. Some farmers found the full enclosure too hot in the summer, lacking adequate ventilation, which is ironic since the comfort in Comfort Ractor was a selling point. Controversy swirls around the claim that Minneapolis Moline exaggerated the tractor's road capabilities. Advertisements of the era depicted owners zooming to town and back, but in reality, many found that the tractor's high center of gravity made it a bit wobbly at higher speeds. Still, there's no denying the nostalgic charm. And once again, if you want one in your garage-turned-museum, you'll be competing with wealthy collectors. Let's just say you might need to mortgage your current house or skip owning one entirely. Number 8, 1924 Roomley Oil Pull Model H. If you want to talk pure, unadulterated power from the dawn of the modern tractor era, the 1924 Roomley Oil Pull Model H is your star. The name oil pull is instantly recognizable among antique machinery buffs because of the tractor's signature operating principle. It ran on kerosene or low-grade fuel with a unique cooling system that used oil vapor. From a distance, the Roomley oil pull looks like a medieval siege engine on wheels. Heavy steel frames, enormous flywheels, and a distinctive upright radiator. Step closer, though, and you'll find an engineering marvel for its time. The Model H boasted a massive, slow-revving engine that produced grunt-like torque, essential for breaking tough prairie sod. The design was so robust that many Roomley tractors stayed in service for decades, outliving countless competitors. Here's the kicker. These beasts can tip the scales at over 5 tons, making transportation and storage a nightmare for any casual collector. Even towing it to a show requires a heavy-duty trailer and a truck capable of hauling that kind of weight without complaining. It's definitely not something you leave sitting in the driveway unless you want the HOA sending you angry letters. On the plus side, the Roomley's iconic oil pull cooling system meant it could run for hours on cheap fuel, generating consistent power for big tasks like threshing, plowing, and pulling stumps. However, it was also notoriously loud, belching out enough exhaust to keep local mosquito populations at bay. Some older farmers recall having to wear rudimentary ear protection, think wads of cloth, just to operate it for prolonged periods. What about controversy? Roomley was eventually bought out and merged with other companies, sparking debates on whether the oil pull technology was overshadowed by more conventional tractor designs that emerged later. Some tractor enthusiasts claim the Roomley brand was shortchanged and that subsequent models from other manufacturers simply borrowed or adapted Roomley's innovations without giving proper credit. Regardless of the drama, a well-preserved or meticulously restored Model H can command prices north of $200,000 at auctions, easily surpassing the cost of an average home in many parts of the U.S. That's a hefty price tag for a rumbling antique that guzzles kerosene like a thirsty camel. Number 7, 1929, Hart Par 30. Originally produced in Charles City, Iowa, the Hart Par 30 is a gem from the late 1920s that plenty of tractor buffs consider a must-have for any serious American vintage collection. Hart Par is often credited with coining the term tractor itself, so if you're talking early American agricultural legends, you simply can't ignore this brand. So what's the big deal about the Hart Par 30? For one, it was the perfect balance of size and power in its era. Equipped with a 2-cylinder engine that boasted a hearty displacement, this tractor could churn out enough torque to handle moderate plowing, threshing, and pulling jobs. Farmers who couldn't afford the monstrous horsepower of bigger rigs found the 30 ideal for mid-sized operations. With that came the advantage of a relatively more compact design. Compact being a relative term in those days, as it still weighed thousands of pounds. Downsides? The Hart Par 30 wasn't exactly the easiest to drive. Early models demanded manual lubrication for various parts, meaning you had to keep a grease gun handy at all times. The engine was also known for giving off a fair bit of vibration. After several hours in the field, you might feel like you tackled a jackhammer. Yet at the time, farmers were less concerned about comfort and more about the miracle of machine-driven power. Where's the controversy? Hart Par eventually merged with other companies to form Oliver Farm Equipment Company, and some die-hard fans lament that the original Hart Par brand was overshadowed. They argue that the Oliver name took center stage in marketing, leaving the pioneering Hart Par identity to fade into the background. Because of this brand transition, Original Hart Par 30s have become incredibly sought after, especially those still bearing intact nameplates and original parts. Today, a well-restored Hart Par 30 can fetch sky-high prices at auctions. While not always hitting the $500,000 mark of some rarer giants, it's certainly capable of surpassing the median home price in plenty of areas. So if you're aiming to add a historically significant, thoroughly American tractor to your collection, and you've got a bank account that won't flinch at six figures, the Hart Par 30 might just be your ticket to mechanical immortality. Number 6, 1935. John Deere Model B Brass Tag. John Deere's Model B series was already iconic, but the so-called brass tag variants from the mid-1930s are the cream of the crop. The nickname comes from a small brass serial number plate found on the earliest iterations, which practically doubles their desirability among collectors. These are the models that laid the foundation for John Deere's unwavering popularity. Yet finding an authentic, unmolested brass tag can feel like searching for a needle in a tractor-sized haystack. Under the hood, or rather the tall cylindrical enclosure, was a two-cylinder engine that produced that distinctive putt-putt exhaust note, which is either music to your ears or an annoyance that sets your teeth on edge. Either way, it's instantly recognizable. The Model B was relatively light and maneuverable, making it a hit with smaller farms that didn't need the heftier Model A. It also boasted adjustable rear wheels for different row widths, a nifty feature for diverse crop operations. One big plus is that parts availability is slightly better compared to more obscure brands, since John Deere has a vast community of collectors and enthusiasts. However, if you're aiming for complete authenticity, original paint, original engine components, the correct brass serial plate, be prepared to invest heavily. Some folks have spent years piecing together a legitimate brass tag B, only to unveil it at tractor shows and earn bragging rights for life. Now the juicy tidbit: rumors circulate about fraudulent brass plates being produced to make a regular old Model B appear more valuable. That's a major controversy in the tractor collecting world. No one wants to pay top dollar only to realize they bought a fake brass tag. Experts advise verifying the serial numbers through John Deere archives, but even that can be tricky. In the end, these conspiracies only drive prices higher for verified models. Add in the nostalgia factor. Plenty of older farmers have fond memories of learning to drive a Model B, and you've got a recipe for sky-high demand. Perfect restorations can fetch well over $50,000, and rumor has it certain rare brass tag versions have exceeded $100,000 at auctions. If you think about what a typical house in the heartland might cost, you'll see why collectors describe the brass tag B as worth more than your front porch, living room, and kitchen combined. Number 5, 1913 Case 3060. Here's a monster that's older than most of our grandparents. The 1913 Case 3060. It's so big, so heavy, and so historically significant that it has transcended mere collector's item status to become something of a mythical beast in vintage tractor circles. Often overshadowed by more famous modern-era cases, the 3060 is a museum piece in its own right, featuring design elements from the era of steam traction engines. The 3060 designation refers to horsepower ratings: 30 horsepower at the drawbar, 60 horsepower on the belt. That might sound quaint by modern standards, but in 1913, this was a land-shaking brute capable of handling massive threshing machines. The engine is a hulking four-cylinder, but it runs so slowly that you could practically count the individual piston strokes. This leisurely pace contributed to its extraordinary torque, which made it ideal for heavy pulling jobs. Downsides? Let's just say that starting this behemoth can be a workout. Crank starting an engine of this size is not for the faint of heart, and if you don't do it just right, it might bite back. And because the tractor's so bulky, it's not exactly nimble in the field. Turning radius? Let's just say you might plan your fields around its limitations. Because of its scarcity, the 30 to 60 sparks controversy among collectors who question the astronomical prices. Some have sold for sums that hover around the $1 million mark, leaving naysayers to argue that no tractor, especially a century-old one, should command that kind of money. But rarity is the name of the game here, and the fact that very few survived intact makes it a coveted crown jewel. Case's branding also plays a part in the tractor's allure. Case was already a household name thanks to steam engines, and the 3060 carried that reputation into the gas-powered era. Devotees consider it an engineering marvel that bridged two worlds, the fading age of steam and the dawn of internal combustion. Today, if you spot a fully operational 3060 at a show, you're witnessing living history that's literally worth more than many American homes. It's like seeing a prehistoric creature that somehow roams among us, reminding everyone that power and grandeur never really go out of style. Number 4, 1938, Minneapolis Moline Twin City JT. Minneapolis Moline makes another appearance on our list, this time with the Twin City JT. Don't let the simpler name fool you. This tractor can still hog-tie your wallet faster than you can say corn harvest. Born out of a merger between Minneapolis Steel and Machinery, Minneapolis Threshing Machine, and Moline Plow, the company boasted a lineage of heavy-duty machines known for their reliability and impressive pulling power. The Twin City JT, introduced in the late 1930s, was positioned as a mid-range row crop tractor. Farmers appreciated its relatively straightforward design and the decent horsepower from its four-cylinder engine. One of its standout features was the adjustable front axle, which could accommodate various row spacings. This kind of adaptability was a game-changer for row crop operations that needed to shift from corn to soybeans or other crops on a whim. A big benefit was how robust the transmission proved to be, able to handle hour upon hour of steady work without overheating or breaking down, a claim that not all tractor manufacturers could make at the time. The Twin City's simple mechanical architecture made it easier to repair, which endeared it to farmers who didn't always have access to specialized mechanics. Key Real Thing, however, commands a pretty penny at auctions, with pristine models comfortably soaring above house down payment territory. Expect $80,000 to $150,000 or more, depending on how complete and original it is. Granted, these figures might not rival some of the million-dollar giants on our list, but they're certainly enough to make you rethink your life choices if you're not a die-hard collector. Still, the JT's unique design and tie to the storied Twin City lineage give it a well-earned spot among the rare classics worth more than your comfortable suburban abode. Number 3, 1925 John Deere D. If you're a green and yellow enthusiast, the John Deere D is likely on your Mount Rushmore of tractor icons. Produced for an impressive run from 1923 all the way into the early 1950s, it was John Deere's first production tractor model and set the stage for decades of success. But not all Ds are created equal, and the 1925 models, especially the unstyled versions, are hot commodities in the collector's market. The Deere D is powered by a two-cylinder horizontal engine known for its distinctive putt-putt soundtrack. Folks either love it for its nostalgic charm or bemoan it for being so loud you could practically wake the neighbors in the next county. Regardless, the engine was marvelously simple, with a massive flywheel that you hand cranked to start. It ran on various fuels from gasoline to kerosene, making it versatile for cash-strapped farmers back in the day. One major perk is its raw pulling power. Early advertisements showed the Model D dragging multiple plows through tough soil, showcasing torque levels that rivaled some larger, more expensive machines. However, the tractor's simplicity was both a blessing and a curse. It lacked amenities we'd consider essential now, like electric start or a cozy operator station. And the steel wheels on the earliest versions made for a bumpy ride if you dared to take it anywhere but a soft field. Controversy arises over the modifications owners sometimes made. In the 1940s and 1950s, plenty of Ds were retrofitted with rubber tires, different hoods, or even updated engines to keep up with technological advancements. That means a fully original 1925 with steel wheels and authentic paint can fetch astronomical prices, while a modified one might be shrugged off by purists. What do we mean by astronomical? Some rarer early Ds can climb well beyond $50,000, and in extraordinary cases, cross the six-figure line. Considering this was once a basic workhorse, it's a testament to how nostalgia and brand loyalty can drive collector insanity. So the next time someone brags about their fancy sports car being a classic, just remind them that a near-century-old John Deere could cost them more than their entire garage. Number 2,925 Caterpillar 60. Arriving in 1925, the Caterpillar 60 was born from the formation of the Caterpillar Tractor Company, a merger between Holt Manufacturing and CL Best Tractor Co. Both American pioneers in track-type tractors. The 60 helped define what a modern crawler tractor could be and became a vital tool for large-scale farms, construction sites, and more. The first thing that sets the Caterpillar 60 apart is its distinctive track system. Unlike wheeled tractors, the 60 used wide steel tracks, a design that drastically reduced ground pressure and provided better traction on soft or uneven terrain. This was a huge breakthrough for farmers struggling with boggy fields or slopes that would leave a wheeled tractor spinning in the mud. Under the hood, you'd find a robust four-cylinder gasoline engine generating an impressive amount of torque. Because it was designed for lugging huge loads, the 60 could pull larger implements than many of its contemporaries. But with that power came a hefty weight, over 20,000 pounds in some configurations, so don't expect to haul it around without specialized transport equipment. Maintenance was comparatively easier than you'd think for a machine of its size and era, as Caterpillar put considerable thought into service access. Still, the tracks themselves required vigilance. Letting mud cake in the rollers or allowing pins to rust could lead to headaches. And then there's the joy of steel tracks churning across pavement. Extremely loud, jarring, and best avoided if you care about your eardrums and your neighbors. The controversy: some folks believe the 60 was overkill for average farms, seeing it more as a construction behemoth than a true row crop solution. That didn't stop many large-scale growers from adopting it, especially out west, where expansive fields and tough soil conditions made big crawlers indispensable. Because Caterpillar's brand has long been synonymous with durability and power, surviving 60s have become highly collectible. Mint condition units with original parts can fetch sums that dwarf many single-family home prices. Factor in brand loyalty, some cat fanciers bleed yellow, and you've got a perfect storm for sky-high auction numbers. Number 1, Big Bud 747. Behold the king of the farm, the Big Bud 747. Nicknamed the world's largest tractor, it was custom-built in Havre, Montana in the late 1970s. This colossal machine stands nearly 14 feet tall, stretches over 27 feet long, and weighs upwards of 100,000 pounds when fully ballasted. Imagine looking out your window and seeing this gargantuan beast parked next to your sedan. Your car would look like a child's toy. Powered by a 16-cylinder Detroit diesel engine, the Big Bud 747 churns out well over 900 horsepower. In some configurations, it could top 1,000 horsepower, meaning it has more grunt than many modern tanks. Its primary job is pulling gigantic tillage implements across vast acres of farmland, especially in areas like the Great Plains, where fields can seem endless. Farmers who use this machine brag they could plow or cultivate 80 to 100 acres per hour, an astonishing feat of efficiency. But let's not skip the drawbacks. Maneuvering something this large requires monstrous open space. Turning around can feel like piloting an aircraft carrier. Transporting it on regular roads, pretty much impossible without special permits and possibly an escort. Fuel consumption is, as you might guess, staggering. Operating costs alone could eclipse the price of a small new tractor in a single season if you're not farming at a massive scale. The Big Bud 747 also stirred up plenty of controversy in farming circles. Some people saw it as a publicity stunt, a tractor built to claim the title of biggest, rather than address specific farming needs. Others praised it for proving that you could scale up tractor size without sacrificing too much functionality. Over the years, Big Bud changed ownership, and the brand's fate has been somewhat tumultuous, but the 747 remains the stuff of legend. Values vary, yet rumors abound that the owners of the original Big Bud 747 have turned down offers nearing 7 figures. That means if you want to buy this mechanical titan, which occasionally finds itself on display at farm shows or museums, you'd better have deeper pockets than a typical homeowner. The irony is that, while some folks live in tiny houses, the Big Bud is practically a moving mansion of horsepower on wheels. When it comes to raw power and outrageous bragging rights, the 747 truly earns its spot as the rare classic tractor worth way more than your house.